Good day. My name is Shaim Simon, and I am an English major at the Sierra Potter College of Education, and I'm in my first year as part of the AD program. From as long as I could remember, I've been an avid reader and lover of literature. I think I would have gained my love for literature from my mother. She also was an avid reader, and one of her favorite genres was mystery. She used to joyfully read the novels of Agatha Christie, who was a renowned mystery novelist. And I also share her love both of novels and of mystery. I generally have a love for the arts, whether it's paintings, music, dance, and things of that nature. So that's a little bit about me. Now, what does it mean to be an English major at Sierra Potter College of Education? Well, I get the opportunity to do what I love, to examine various aspects of literature and to critique what I examine. I also get the opportunity to learn various techniques to communicate what I would have learned in the classroom to others. And this brings me a lot of joy. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to comment on the course that I'm currently undertaking, which is Introduction to Prose Fiction. And for those of you who may be wondering, what is prose? Prose is a form of literature that is different from drama and different from poetry. And fiction refers to writing that comes out of the imagination. So to put it together, prose, fiction refers to writing in the form of paragraphs that comes out of the imagination. So it could be expressed in stories, novels, and so on. While doing this course, we will be given the opportunity to learn various teaching strategies, to read a lot of short stories and a novella, and to appreciate the author's style, to examine the themes that are present in the course, and to see what we can benefit from those themes. Now, how are we assessed throughout this course? Well, the assessments vary. Some of them may be individual, some of them may be group assessments, but they all center around the short stories and the novella. And they generally involve us analyzing the stories. We're looking for narrative techniques, we're looking for themes, and we're commenting on the effectiveness of these by the author. What does literature mean to me, and how does literature relate to life? I generally think that through reading literature, we gain insights into human existence. We should not be fooled into thinking that because literature, or should I, to be more specific, prose fiction is fictional, that it does not provide insights into real human existence. It actually does. And to quote the words of a famous philosopher, Diderot, he once said that your history is often full of falsehoods, and your romance is often full of truth. What does he mean? Sometimes a romance, in the sense of a fictional romance, can reveal insights into true human nature, despite it being fictional in nature. And we often find that. For instance, while we're reading stories, the characters may be fictional, they may not represent real individuals, but the experiences, their reaction to those experiences, their mannerisms, their behavior, we could relate to that as human beings. We could understand why they may react a certain way within a certain situation, and we can see a mirror of ourselves. We can put ourselves in that situation. We would more often than not react in the same way that they would have reacted. And so when we read literature, that's how we can draw insights from it. We live in a world that is sometimes friendly, it's sometimes hostile, but literature, in a sense, gives us an understanding of human nature. From an author's perspective, an author often injects his worldview into his writing, and he does that through his characters and through the situations that they find themselves in. We as students get an opportunity to critique that worldview. We don't have to accept it, but through critiquing it, we get to appreciate his view and to see how it differs from our own. And by doing this, we can bridge the gap and thereby gain a better understanding of ourselves and of the world around us. So that's what literature means to me and to human life. Now, without further ado, it's time for me to get into a discussion of the short stories that we were doing, and for me to provide a bit of insight into the background of the authors and of the stories themselves. So, our first story that we're going to look at is The Day the World Almost Came to an End. Its author is Miss Pearl Creighton. And I'm going to give you a bit of insight into who Miss Creighton was. Now, Miss Pearl Creighton was born on a plantation in Louisiana in 1932. She gave birth to 5 children and was married and then later divorced. Throughout her life, she moved from location to location. At one point in time, she lived in Alexandria, and another point in time, she moved to California. And this was during the Second World War, which was from the years 1941 to 1945. Now, Miss Creighton received her bachelor's in mass communication in California. Because of her intellectual capacity and her ability, she later gained a fellowship for poets in the schools from the California Arts Council. She spent most of her life teaching students at the San Jose University. So this is a brief biography of Miss Pearl Creighton. Now, without further ado, it's time for us to examine the novel that I shouldn't say novel, pardon me, the short story that Miss Creighton would have authored. And the name of that story is The Day the World Almost Came to an End. It's actually a very interesting story. I personally liked it a lot when I first read it. And I believe that when I get into a synopsis of this story, you as well will find it quite enjoyable. Now, what is The Day the World Almost Came to an End about? Well, the story chronicles an account in the narrator's life when she was a child, 12 years old to be exact. The narrator grew up on a plantation, and it was part of a community that was heavily influenced by religion. But the narrator, being a child, found religion to be very restrictive and dubbed herself a sinner. Her cousin, whose name is Rena, overheard a conversation that adults were having concerning an impending eclipse and misunderstood the meaning of that conversation. She communicated this to the narrator, by telling her that the world is coming to an end. At first, the narrator is skeptical, but thereafter begins to ponder seriously on what her cousin told her. Her thoughts eventually progressed to paranoia, where she could not control her thoughts with regard to the world coming to an end. She decided to speak to her father about this, and his response only exacerbated her fears. He told her that the world could come to an end at any time. Also, the hellfire sermons that would be preached in the church did not serve to stymie her fears, but only increase them as well. Matters came to an head when one night the narrator hears an old plane flying overhead and mistakes the rumbling of this plane for the impending end of the world. She fearfully runs out of her house, screaming that the world is coming to an end. Run for your lives. Her father runs after her, consoles her, and tells her that at least on that day, the world is not coming to an end. From thereafter, the narrator decides that she would live life to the fullest. So that is the summary of the story, The Day the World Almost Came to an End.